Matthew Dowd, ABC
Hi.
News contributor.
Hey.
Thank you so much for being here. Have you signed in yet?
Yeah, I signed it, and I said back
Oh,
there.
you did Michigan. You did the mid.
I did,
Oh, that's right.
Which is easy. George's look like something I've seen on a cave dwelling.
I'm sure he appreciates that. I'm sure that he appreciates that. Okay, so we haven't talked to. We spent a lot of time talking about Ann Romney, but we haven't spent a lot of time talking about Chris Christie. And I say that because he is the keynote speaker. We know that past his prologue, some of those folks have gone on to great heights being elected president. Many of them are forgettable. In fact, more of them are forgettable than they are memorable. So are we blowing the Chris Christie keynote thing up a little bit too much? And how are we going to talk about him after this? How does he want us to talk about him after this?
Well, Amy, I think it's a really interesting question because conventions always are designed so that your candidate is going to win, but there's also a sense that it's if your candidate loses, who's the next leader of the party? And everybody here obviously wants Mitt Romney to win, but there's also a sense is who are we going to look to if that doesn't happen 70 days from now? And Chris Christie is one of those folks that if Mitt Romney loses, just like Marco Rubio and some others, that people are going to look at here and think, are they the next generation or are they the next round of leaders that we need to turn to? And so I think, ultimately, Chris Christie's speech is not about himself. It's not about his future. It's about Mitt Romney's future. But I think people look at these speakers like Chris Christie and Marco Rubio and say, if Mitt Romney loses, that's our guy.
And I know only junkies like us really pay attention to 2016 before the 2012 race is over. But to your point, Marco Rubio, of all the state delegations he could go to a breakfast for here, and which delegates does he go talk to? South Carolina. Now, not a battleground state, right? But Marco Rubio goes talk to South Carolina Republicans. You see some of that jockeying already taking place.
Yeah, we're on the permanent campaign where the general election, regardless of what happens on November the 6th, the general election campaign for 2016 starts on November the 7th. That's going to happen. We all know that, just as how politics works. But ultimately, I think everybody here is trying to do their best to create the dynamic that Mitt Romney gets some lift coming out of this convention. The question is, does he get any from many different factors? Does he get any? The way the convention is set up with the Democratic convention, but ultimately, does he get a lift? And then the future, obviously, will be told after November the 6th.
You know, the other question, too, is, and what seems to be unique, is what does President Obama do during this week? In the olden days, you sat back when it was not your party's turn. You let them have the stage for that week. We're way past that now, right? So President Obama going on the road tomorrow. He's going to battleground states, Iowa, Colorado, Virginia, talking to younger voters. What do you think that does to, this idea, first of all, of a convention bounce, if there's any, or that any of this can actually sink in if 2 minutes after they make a speech, the president is already rebutting it?
Well, I think it definitely affects the whole dynamic, and also affecting the dynamic is $500 million in resources that have spent coming into this convention, which has never happened before. All of those things. But there are moments in presidential races that people turn to and want to get a cue from. These are one of those moments. Even if they may catch part of it, the speeches, the vice presidential speech, Mitt Romney's speech, the debates, all of them are cues and moments that are important because they put things in focus for people. And that's why I think these things are important. Less important, but still important.
Well, and, we are going to watch, of course, a number of other people come up here, including Rick Santorum, which I don't know how rare this is, but to have your former rivals come up and make speeches. But Rick Santorum, this was a pretty bitter rival at one point. But the Romney campaign is convinced they can use him as a very solid surrogate on this issue of welfare reform, really going at those white working class voters that Rick Santorum was trying to get in the primaries as well. Tell me what you think about this strategy. There's been a lot of talk about whether it's effective or not, whether there are Democrats saying this is race baiting to bring up the issue of welfare reform. How effective do you think this is going to be?
Well, I think all of the issues like welfare reform and the discussions on Medicare and education, all those are sub-issues to the broad dynamic of this. I actually think Rick Santorum could actually have a great message on the Rust Belt and what's happened and income levels that have happened. He speaks very well to some of that working class, as we all saw him during the primary. My guess is, though, Rick Santorum is going to be sent to a lot of places without a lot of media. He's going to be sent to a lot of gatherings that don't have a lot of media coverage, which would serve well when you add up 1 vote, 2 votes, 10 votes at a time.
Still has impact, yeah.
I don't think they want Rick Santorum out in the media conveying what he's doing while Mitt Romney's running his campaign. But he'll be doing gatherings, just no place where there's a lot of media.
But that entire nomination season doesn't seem to have done any lasting damage to Mitt Romney. Would you say?
Well, I don't know if we know that yet, David,
Okay.
because I think all of us have talked about what he needs to do to fix the situation he's in, which is rehab himself and get people to sort of trust him and tap into him. He may be in this situation where he has a virus that he has no antidote to.
Wow.
And we'll know at the end of this convention if he was able to fix part of that. We'll know in the debates. But I think that damage that has actually could have started in 2007 in his race there and then went through this primary process, we don't know if they're permanent hits were taken that he can't fix.
Matthew Dowd, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Glad you're here. Thanks.
Thank you
Thank you
very
for
much.
doing that.